Hello, and welcome to episode 38 of Rush Roundtable. Today we're talking about the two final tracks on Fly By Night, Rivendell and In the End. Join the discussion in the comments and let us know what you think about the video. Alright, sweet, thanks.
Hey guys, alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tell you a song that we're currently hooked on. If there's not a song we're currently hooked on, we're going to just give a shout out to perhaps a lesser known song, one that someone hasn't heard in a while, or perhaps one that someone hasn't heard at all. So just to give some of our fans a deeper dive into the catalog. So Kate, why don't you go first?
I actually want to give a shout out to Summertime Blues. I was organizing my pantry today and that came on and I was like, man, I hadn't heard that in a while. It's awesome. I know it's not a Rush song, but you know, it is.
Pretty awesome either way, especially in the summertime.
Yeah.
Austin.
Alright, so I haven't really been hooked on that much this week, but I'd like to give a shout out to Halo Effect. I was listening through Clockwork Angels today and just listening to that, I'm like, man, especially the mix is just so good. Like between the bass and the acoustic guitar and just how it intertwines, it's like perfect.
Yeah, nice.
Pretty nice slow song. Jim?
All right, I'm gonna give a shout out to Malignant Narcissism, one of three instrumentals on Snakes and Arrows, and you know, with it being so short, I think it's skipped over a lot. But the vibe of that song is it's kind of like on a YYZ style vibe, where it's really just a bass and drum jam, and then Alex came in and did his bit on top of that. But I just think it's a great tune. It's a lot of fun. Short, but fun.
So I'm going to keep it with the later-ish albums. I'm going to go to Counterparts. The Speed of Love, one that I hadn't heard in a while. I heard it today, not necessarily hooked on it, but just one that I thought would be perfect for a shout out for a deeper track. I think it's really forgotten about on that album and overall,
Yeah.
but I think it's a pretty neat song, pretty beautiful song. So let's go check out The Speed of Love. So tonight we're talking about Rivendell and In the End from Fly By Night. And Jim, take it away.
All right, so from our song by song, here we go for Rivendell. Rivendell is an almost unbelievable change of pace for what has, up to this point, been an upbeat rock album. This music was written entirely by Lee, who plays classical guitar and sings in an uncharacteristic soft style, which is jarring in its difference. Peart's lengthy lyric describes the beautiful elven town of Rivendell of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth. Although the lyric has its origin in fantasy, the song is a perfect lyrical counterpart to the album's previous song, describing the author's longing for rest and respite, despite an insatiable drive for adventure. With its soft guitars, gentle singing, and repetitive structure, it is easy to compare the song to a lullaby. The song was recorded towards the end of the Fly By Night sessions, with the band exhausted from an unrelenting schedule. While the song is not a poor composition, at nearly 5 minutes long and with little dynamic and melodic change, it is arguably overlong. However, the piece does segue perfectly into the next track, which adds to the impact of the album's finale. Yeah.
So I have two quotes. One that Jim kind of already touched on, but this is from Robert Teleria and Merely Players. The title comes from the serene village in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, which was inhabited by elves and landscaped by misty mountains. Mist was an ancient mystery, as it was an indeterminate element. It was paradise on earth. And this one actually this next quote came from Getty in an April 2013 interview with Jim Ladd, the day before the band's induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So Getty says that the band had been working on Fly By Night for several days straight with little sleep and were due to leave the next day. Producer Terry Brown kept playing Rivendell, the last song to be mixed, to get their take on how it sounded, but the band members could never stay awake long enough to give their opinion. We would begin the song, listening back, all kind of lying on the floor in front of the mixing console, and we'd get to the end of the song, and every single time one of us was sound asleep. So they essentially had to keep playing it over and over again until they were able to finally give their opinion on it, and because they kept falling asleep. And the funny thing about that is our friend Jerry from the Rush Fancast, the Something for Nothing Rush Fancast podcast that Jerry and Steve had, they actually told a story about a fan that emailed them that said that they listened to Rivendell to fall asleep at night. So the whole idea behind that is just funny to me, because I can totally see it. Like, not much Rush puts you to sleep, but it's something that I could totally see as, and not in a bad way either. It's just a peaceful song, right? So, I mean, what do you guys think?
I mean, yeah, I totally agree. And it really adds to the impact of, in the end, later on, just with the sort of slow building. And I think this is something that they'll explore later on in Farewell to Kings too, with Madrigal going into Cygnus. But yeah, a little long, but still solid for the flow of the album to have a little low just before it kicks up again.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So,
just a peaceful, just kind of relaxing type song. I mean, I think it captures the idea behind Rivendell, the place where basically the utopia where the Dark Lord cannot go is what is said in the song. I think it does a really good job capturing that. To Austin's point, yeah, a little long, but and Geddy plays classical guitar on this.
Yeah.
And there's no drums to my knowledge, so no drums at all.
I don't know.
So
I mean, I mean, the song it's really a departure from the rest of the album, but Alex's electric guitar work is really quite beautiful. If you just really sit and focus and listen to it, it's really, really beautiful. And I love the lyrical reference. I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, and I think the reference is great. But yeah, I do think the song could have been like half the length. Maybe it's just a little bit too long in my opinion, but
6
still,
minutes, right?
And it's
6
just,
minutes.
almost,
5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but going back to what Jim said, like I'm a guitar guy, so hearing I'm always paying attention to Alex's work and everything, and this is one of the first times I think he's using the volume swells, which he goes back and uses during Xanadu and La Via Strangiato, for example. But yeah, really interesting song. Yeah, especially Geddy's vocals too. Terry Brown actually panned them to the left side, so it kind of gives you this weird uneasy feeling. If you're sitting there with headphones on, it feels like Geddy's like right here to you. So yeah, pretty interesting, especially because he's being really quiet. You can like hear like everything he does with his mouth, like whether he's singing or not. So it's kind of got this unearthly sort of feeling.
That's pretty cool. I'll have to try. I didn't have the opportunity to listen to either of these with my headphones on this time around. I only really listened to both of these songs in the car the last number of days. So
yeah,
I wouldn't get that.
Yeah, same thing. Like just listening back to those tracks before doing this, I just heard that. I'm like, whoa, that's interesting, because you usually don't hear that. It's usually like straight down the center.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. Kate?
Awesome.
Yeah, I pulled up my notes here. I've not done any of these song discussions yet, so bear with me. I'm just going to read what I typed because I feel like it kind of makes sense more than I can make sense right now.
That's fair.
Musically, it is soft and simple, just guitar. Geddy on classical acoustic, Alex playing electric that gently fades in and out. Geddy's singing is soft and sweet. The lyrics describe a serene, magical place. Neil's writing is so vivid, I feel as if I'm there in Rivendell, even though I've never read or seen Lord of the Rings. It all comes together to create a peaceful, sweet little song. It doesn't quite match the tone of the rest of the album, but in true Rush fashion, they make it work. I think it's a refreshing break from the heaviness of the other songs. I also think it's the perfect song to lead up to in the end.
Yeah, that's
totally
great.
agree.
Agree. Oh yeah, I so agree.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite match the tone of the rest of the album. That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely second that. I mean, the more and more that I listen to this song, whether it be, listening to the lyrics specifically or listening to, hey, Austin, can you mute, by the way?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good. Just so there's no background noise. But I mean, whether it's me listening to, like, specifically trying to listen to just the music or specifically just the lyrics, I think the more and more that I listen to this song, just the more I enjoy it. I never really was a big, and that's happened to me with quite a few of these songs that we've discussed so far. Not the biggest fan of some of these songs, especially the older stuff, but as I listen to it over and over and over again, it's like, this is quite good. So I do want to read one of our admins, Pat, wrote a piece here. He was going to come on and discuss with us, but he ended up not being able to make it. So I wanted to just read his piece because he took the time to do it. So this may be considered the weakest song on the album and probably something the average Rush fan would skip over in favor of the faster, more high-energy tracks. Even still, the quiet and peaceful nature of Rivendell fits nice and snug in the adventure that is Fly By Night. It provides a tranquility that the album really needed as it winds down and finishes. This is one of the first songs that directly alludes to pre-existing literature in the Neil era. Just by listening to the lyrics, you can see Neil's inspiration at work. His appreciation for Tolkien's world building is proven through the lyrics containing mountains, traveling friends, and much more. This sets the stage for future Rush songs, including lyrics that are a product of Neil's inspiration. And I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his last name properly. I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan either, to Kate's point. But it does definitely paints a picture for you as to, that utopia. So I think it's pretty well done. Now, so some lyrics here to discuss. You feel there's something calling you. You're wanting to return to where the misty mountains rise and friendly fires burn. A place you can escape the world where the Dark Lord cannot go. Peace of mind and sanctuary by loud waters flow. What do you guys think of that little piece there? Jim, you're smirking.
Yeah, well, I'm smirking because it is painting this beautiful picture, and of Rivendell and where it's located, and Neil's referencing the Misty Mountains, which was a big. Actually, they went to the Misty Mountains in The Hobbit, which is a prelude to Lord of the Rings. And it's really painting this beautiful, serene picture. And seeing the movies and reading the book and reading these words, they all kind of fit that way. And I just think this is a really great use of words that Neil did to evoke those images in your mind. That was really kind of brilliant in my opinion.
It makes me want to dive into the series, honestly. The Lord of the Rings series.
I got all the books, if you want to call.
I mean, I'm not much of a reader other than our song by song book. But no, I mean, I've seen bits and pieces of the Lord of the Rings in passing. My uncle's a big fan of it. I've seen it on in his house every once in a while. But yeah, it makes me want to dive into it, really. So I think I might just do that. Anything else you guys want to say about Rivendell?
I think I'll just say, recently I went on a road trip and I listened to the entire discography back to back. So it was like a 9-hour car ride. So going up, we listened to the first album through Hold Your Fire, and then going back down, Presto onwards. But I think what I sort of learned through that experience was just sort of listening to each album and song in the context of the whole discography. So I think like listening to something like Rivendell with the context of something like Discovery to come after it, or the intro and outro to Fountain of Lamnath, like it really puts things into perspective. Like, oh, they had to make this before they could make like 2112. Like this is a piece in the puzzle that needed to be made before 2112 could be made, or something like that. So Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's great.
What you just said made me think of something too. I mean, I think I appreciate this song a heck of a lot more as a part of Fly By Night as opposed to just a Rush song. Because if I just hear this song, the song just comes on shuffle, after I've listened to One Little Victory or something, later in the catalog, whatever, it's like, okay, skip. Like I'm not up for it. But if I'm listening to it as the album progresses, it's like, okay, this is really good. And I think that's why it's grown on me, because we've discussed Fly By Night from top to bottom. So I think it definitely fits in terms of, how the album flows. So,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Kate or Jim, anything else you guys want to say?
No.
All right. Take it away. In the end.
All right, in the end, here we go. After the tender end of the previous track, In the End begins with more soft acoustic guitars. Lee, returning to his bass, once again performs with a gentle voice, though with a perceptible increase in energy. A change from the maudlin Rivendell. The first verse and chorus are performed with no drums, and knowing that this is the final track on the album, a flash of disappointment must have crossed the minds of many listeners when at about a minute and a half, the music fades away and the track seems to end. With enormous power and clarity, Lifeson's distorted guitar explodes out of the song, the power of which must be psychologically amplified by the previous 6 minutes of quiet acoustic music. Fiert is back as well and powers into the main body of the song with Lee's Rickenbacker back at its growling best. On the first album, Rush attempted a similar style of soft intro, heavy song with before and after. In the End is a great example of a good idea perfectly realized after experimentation on a previous album. The lyric, one of the more ambiguous on the album, was written by Lee and Lifeson and has been interpreted as a love song or perhaps a lament to the author's shortcomings. The final line of the song is perhaps the most pertinent. After an entire song, understanding how the object of the song is superior to the song's author, Lee sings, If I think like you think, it doesn't make my load much lighter. That was a tongue twister at the end.
So some interesting liner notes listed here. Donna Halper is once again thanked here, and Howard Ungerleider is credited for his inspirational story by two characters. The liner notes on this also contain, for best results, play this album at max volume, as it's stated in the debut album. But a couple quotes. So this again is from Robert Teleria from Merely Players. A Coming Home from the Road song. Neil's original lyric sheet had the title written on a tombstone, which suggests a more serious meaning for the song. So that's interesting. And then In the End opens, this is from Bill Banasowitz. I believe that's how you pronounce the last name. Actually, I probably totally butchered that, but this is from Rush Visions, the author of Rush Visions. So In the End opens quietly, much like Rivendell, but then Alex kicks in with a killer guitar riff, a riff followed by Neil and Geddy before a classic Rush tempo change. I mean, I think that's where it's, because it's the last song in the album where they stop. I think that's just typical what we've come to know with Rush, kind of just playing a little gag on us, on the listener. Basically, that's what, a minute or two into the song where it just, so, but yeah, what do you guys think?
Well, when I was listening to this song, I also took a listen back to some bootlegs, because I know that they wrote this song in '74 along with basically the first album sessions. I think they first wrote the song with Rutsy, actually. But it was one of the songs, like Best I Can as well, that were brought to Neil after. And like if you go to the Fifth Order of Angels bootleg, or you can see them play at the Whiskey A Go Go. Not see, but there's a recording of them there. But One of the things that stood out to me when listening to the bootlegs was how heavy the bass was. Like, usually for a song like that, with a killer guitar riff, you just expect the bass just to be laying back or whatever. But Getty's really in the forefront on this one. And like, it's 74 and the guy's like laying down these bass chords. The bass might even be louder than the guitar live, and you're like, what is this, Primus? But especially for 74, it was like, whoa. So yeah, that's one of the things I noticed.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
What are No, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, it's interesting that this one starts out really mellow as well, and I could see like what Alex Body wrote in the book, how people may be disappointed, but at a minute and 41, it's all mellow, and then Alex comes in with the with electric guitar and overlays some really nice guitar. I don't know what you call it, but an additional part on top of that. And I think the bass and the drums just add a very, very good contrast to it. And Geddy plays, there's some parts, he has some runs that are kind of busy, which I think we've all expect to hear from him now. But I think, as Austin was mentioning, way back when this was recorded, that was not really commonplace for that. You get, and the ending, what did I put here about, oh yeah, the ending of this song echoes the beginning of the song. So you've got the quiet beginning, then it kind of rocks out, and then it kind of mellows out for the last, I don't know how long, not too long, 20 seconds or whatever. And it really, to me, brings the song to a nice full circle of the song, and I think it brings a really nice, kind of peaceful close to the album.
Exactly.
I think they tried that again with the album after the Fountain of Lamneth, with the whole like verse 1 at the beginning, soft, kicks up, finally 20 minutes later at the end, mellows back down, full circle, album close. But yeah.
So, I mean, first of all, I think the lyrics are somewhat throwaway lyrics, like lyrics that you might hear on the first album, or in Best I Can, Making Memories maybe, but not to that extent, but kind of. I kind of think this is an attempt at a love song. Getty singing, I can see what you mean, it just takes me longer. I mean, I feel like that's someone like really truly trying to understand their partner, or maybe just a friend, because sometimes, perhaps it's saying that you may try to be, you as a person may try to be everything that someone wishes to see in you, but like kind of in the end, that's not really possible. So like, what I mean by that is, do you guys kind of understand what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of a love song to an extent, but not like a deep love song, if you get it. You get what I'm saying there? But one cool thing that in listening to this, listening to it back multiple times for this episode, at about 4:25 in the song, it kind of sounds like Geddy is singing or humming like the guitar part, and it's kind of interesting because you don't really see that often, or you don't really hear that often. So I think it's kind of
remind me of like Wish You Were Here sort of thing. Like, like the solo at the end, and then like walking back and forth. Same album year too, but yeah.
I just thought that was interesting. Kind of cool. But
another interesting thing to me too was Alex's like overdub, like leading into the riff, like into the verse, like that thing he has going on, and then it kind of like gets off time as it goes off. But that's another thing I noticed about the first two albums, is that they aren't like completely airtight, because that's a hallmark of the Rush sound, is just absolutely airtight. Everything is just there. But it's a little looser on the first couple albums, which I find is interesting.
Not so perfect.
Yeah. And then Alex is also using his Roland phaser pedal, which he uses a lot on the first few albums.
Kate?
You guys pretty much addressed everything I wanted to mention. I almost started reading Pat's part because it's under mine.
I'm going to read that in a second, but I think he in just a couple sentences, Pat outlined.
I mean,
Really
honestly,
well.
you guys touched on everything I was going to mention. So,
All right, well, we'll read Pat's. So what can be more fitting to close the album than this track? It sounds like, I think this is interesting. He says it sounds like an ending credits song. And I can agree with that. I can kind of see that. It starts nice and mellow and then abruptly turns into a jam while still retaining the groove of the song. The lyrics written by Getty express feelings of empathy, and no matter the simplicity, it still sends a strong and valid message. So yeah, I mean, I can see that. I mean, he says what can be more fitting to close the album than this track? I mean, literally has the word end in it in the title. I believe, to my knowledge, this closed quite a few shows back in the 70s, or closed the encore, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think or at the very least, I think it was in the encore.
Yeah, for the bootlegs, I saw it was like kind of in the middle, but they could have switched it up over, because I think those were 74 actually. So
yeah, I mean, I have the Wandering the Face of the Earth book. I should have checked it, but anyways, I feel like this song is similar to The Garden in a way, in that, yeah, it's the closing track on the album. It kind of ties the whole album together, and it's just, you know, really, it's a really perfect closing tune. See episode 16 and 16B, whatever you want to call it, that we did. We did two episodes on closing tracks. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about some of the lyrics. So, I can shine like you shine. It don't make me brighter. If I think like you think, it doesn't make my load much lighter. I can see what you mean. It just takes me longer. I can feel what you feel. It just makes me stronger. Thoughts on that?
And it does kind of sound like you had mentioned earlier, Ryan, about, like, you know, maybe somebody's, you know, relationship with a partner. You know, that's what kind of, you know, or you could think of it as, you know, somebody is trying to be a better person, and they see somebody that they admire, and they want to try to think like that, or to feel like that person does.
It's almost like you put that person on a pedestal, right? And if they can't live up to that expectation, well then, you know, so like if, for example, if my wife puts me, this is not like an example personally, but like if your wife or whatever, or your partner puts you on a pedestal and they want you to live up to that expectation, but you can't, then you almost feel like you've let them down, or they may feel that like you've let them down, type of thing, right? So I think that's kind of what I meant earlier when I said what I did. But it's not really a real deep love song, but I think it kind of plays with the emotions of you know, relationships, whether it be with your significant other or with a friend, or you know,
Right.
perhaps not living up to expectations, or trying to live up to expectations that, you know, you may have for yourself, or your partner may have for you. But so what song of the two that we discussed, Rivendell or In the End, do you guys like more?
in the end,
In the End, Kate?
oh man, that's like really difficult because I like them both about the same.
I mean, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
That's my
There we
choice.
go.
That's your choice?
Not
All right.
deciding.
Choosing free will? All right. Jim?
In the end.
I'm kind of in the same boat as Kate, because I've been thinking about this for the whole week. Which one do I pick? But we'll give Rivendell some love because you guys both picked in the end. It's a coin flip for me. So, I mean, I don't have a coin in front of me to flip. As always, anything else you guys want to say about either song or about Fly By Night kind of as a whole as we wrap up our song discussions on Fly By Night?
Well, I'd just say like Fly By Night as a whole is just the next step in the evolution to Rush becoming prog. So like, of course you have like the elements in Viator and stuff like that, but I think in this album there were different elements that were executed separately. So like the prog part in Viator, the quiet part in Rivendell, the lyrics in between, beneath and behind, that whole thing, and then like they'll add it together later in Caress of Steel, in The Necromancer and Fountain of Lamneth, and then they'll really hone in on it on 2112. But just thinking in the whole discography, what this means, what was introduced in this album that continued forward. Yeah,
Absolutely. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon for any new videos. Feel free to join the discussion in the comments. And if you'd like to come on an episode, just feel free to shoot us a direct message over on Instagram. Awesome. Thanks for joining us. And everyone, take care.